Welcome back to the opinion spot. How's everybody doing? It is spooky season. I'm back. Spooky season. It is the month of Old House Eve. And here today on the list, we got a top 5 list for you today. Today, I'm bringing part 1 today, and then Friday, part 2 afterwards. Let's check it out. So what are we doing today? Today, as the title goes, my top 5 favorite werewolf movies of all time. I guess you could do that. Now you guys know I'm a huge werewolf fan. I love werewolves. A little more than I love vampires, but don't worry. Part 2 will be all top 5 vampire movies. But let's get started, my dudes. This should be real fun, and I look forward to hearing your answers as well. But in the meantime, this is mine. Let's do this. Alright guys, and number 1 on the list, as you can see, was Dog Soldiers. Matter of fact, the funniest thing about this is, and I promise you not, put it on my mother's grave. 2 nights ago, this came on and I was watching it, and it still holds up. Again, I haven't watched it in a while, so when it came on, I believe it was Showtime. I was like, oh my god, it's Dog Soldiers, cool. And then sit down and watch it before bed. I watched it again, and I still love it. This is directed by the same man that gave us The Descent, so it is pretty bloody, but the story is about soldiers, British soldiers who are training exercise in the Scottish Highlands, and they come across a family pack of werewolves, and it starts real quick, real heavy. And it gets deeper and deeper into the mystery, and the story is the soldiers are held up in this farmhouse along with a woman who supposedly is an animal expert, who has heard the stories of this, because it's played off more as like, okay, yeah, werewolves, or she discovered werewolves and this and that. And these werewolves are smart, they're giant, they're huge. And when you see them fully, you're like, whoa, like the costumes look pretty good. And they're pretty scary, like you would not want to see one of these things. But this pack of werewolves are vicious, man. They take no prisoners. You see them eating people, you see them munching down, hell, ripping guys' heads off and throwing at people. It was really interesting to see how long this group of soldiers were gonna last. Many of the players in this, in terms of actors, if you saw them, you probably recognize them. You're like, okay, I know that guy, that actor. But one of the actors, I'm forgetting his name right, but he did the voice acting for Soap McTavish from Call of Duty. Before they rebooted them, the older Call of Duty. But the whole concept is these soldiers trying to survive, and by the end of it, there aren't that many survivors. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. It's a good movie, it's a fun movie, and it's pretty gory. But Dog Soldiers, number 1. Number 2 on the list, guys, goes to The Howling. The Howling, to me, this came out right around the same time of the 80s of American Werewolf in London. And this is another one of those movies that had great practical effects, and I think it actually won a couple awards too. Dee Wallace is in this movie. She is the main actress in this movie. For all those who don't know who Dee Wallace is, you better get knowledge on it. Dee Wallace is mainly known for being Elliot's mom in the E.T. Also, she was the mother in Cujo. You know, she's done a lot of horror-esque movies, and in this, she is in this movie, and she's a journalist, and she goes into the small community where pretty much the community are werewolves, and there's a lot of sexual tension in this movie, as I gotta say. This is not for kids, but when I saw it, I was a kid. And there's some real, I mean, you've got werewolves having sex. I mean, they're morphing when they're having sex, and I'm just like, as a kid, you're like, wait, what's going on? But you see it, and the practical effects in this movie are great. It's dark, it's gritty, and the first one is probably the best. By the time they start going into other sequels, they got worse, in my opinion. The first one is the best, while the others are at best. But yeah, the Howling makes my list. Just on the practical effects alone, they were just great, just unbelievable. You'd be surprised at that. The Howling. Number 3 on the list. Well, number 3 goes to American Werewolf in London. John Landis directed this horror comedy-esque movie of two hitchhikers, two American backtrackers who are traveling in London, in England, and they are, I believe, in the northern part of England, more countryside. At one night, they go to a pub. I would say, I want to use the proper term, and they kind of looked at very strangely. One of them asks, "What's that mark?" And they basically are shoved out of this pub to fend for themselves. They are walking in the dark, and all of a sudden, the two are attacked. And one survives, the other doesn't, and we see why. And later on, it's discovered that he turns into a werewolf at night. And one of the interesting things about it is we don't really get to see him as the werewolf fully until later in the movie. But the American Werewolf in London has probably one of the greatest werewolf transformation and painfulest transformations in werewolf cinema. I mean, you literally see this guy turning into a werewolf. His bones are stretching, his teeth you're hearing the stretching of the skin. Great practical effects. And we don't see, but he is terrorizing London at night. Like you see him hunting down people and things like this. These are the type of werewolf movies I don't mind, but my favorite type of werewolves are the werewolves that know they're werewolves. They can control even when they're in their werewolf form. This is more like the beast takes over and you're gonna die in this way. When you finally see him fully, you're like, whoa, that's kind of scary looking. As a kid, when I saw this, it was kind of scary. I was like, oh, okay. And seeing him chase down people. And what was more interesting about the movie, he is seeing the people he's killed while he's in human form. Like, for example, he still sees his best friend, and every scene, every time you see him, he gets more decayed looking and everything like that. It was like, oh man. And he constantly seeing the people that he killed, and they're telling him, kill yourself, kill yourself. It's almost like penance for what you did to us. It's a sad movie. It's really sad. You know, I didn't really look at it as a comedy. I was like, this is a comedy, you know, I guess. But at the point, it's just like you feel sorry for him. You feel sorry for the main actor. You feel sorry for the people that he loved, and even feel sorry for the nurse that fell in love with him. You're like, and she's the one that kills him, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So yeah, but it's a really good movie. It's one of my favorites. alone because of the practical effects. Now, this and The Howling, they came around the same time, but yeah, it's good stuff. American Werewolf in London, good movie. And they also made a sequel with the child of the main character, but this time he was in Paris. A little too late, but at best. Number 4 on the list goes to Silver Bullet. This is a Stephen King. Stephen King. Rest in peace, Corey Haim. He was in this movie. Young Corey Haim. And this movie is telling through the eyes of Corey Haim's sister. Gary Busey is in it. The kids stay with their uncle because their parents went away. But the story is the werewolf in this is actually a man of God. Supposedly, he's a priest. Our father, one of them, yeah. And I thought that was really interesting. As a kid, when I saw it, I was like 10 or 9 when I first saw it. But as I got older and saw it, I was like, that's an interesting concept. Okay, just saying like the werewolf, it doesn't matter. Now, Corey Haim's character, he's in a wheelchair, so that you already kind of get sympathy from me. You're always going to get a little sympathy, and you want that character to live. But he also has like rocket boosters on it, which is really cool. And he gets chased by the werewolf, and he's able to hurt it in his eye. And over time, they start trying to figure out who is the werewolf in the town. And when they finally do, it becomes a do or die situation. These kids are trying to tell the older adults, like, look, there's a werewolf here. This is gonna happen. Their uncle Gary Busey is kind of like, this is bullshit. No, you're not. No, he's no werewolf. Things like that. But it is, and he does get silver bullets, and they try to play it off like I'm introducing my nephew to the Lone Ranger because Lone Ranger use silver bullets and everything like that. But yeah, when we finally truly get to see the werewolf, though, that's where it gets a little funny. Now, as a kid, once again, it was kind of, you're a little scared. But when you see it through adult eyes, and I remember seeing this again, I was 9 or 8 when I first saw it. Then, when I got to like 14, I'm like, you almost like you're looking at it, you're like, that's not a wolf, that's a bear. Stuff like that. But I still love it. But still, I'll watch it. I'll try to watch it anytime, and I'm like, he looks like a bear. And when you finally see the werewolf just throwing Gary Busey around, and it's this slow motion, like, and he's just getting thrown around. But you're like, he looks like a bear. It looks like a bear, not a wolf. But it was still cool to see how they kill it. And you see him morphing back into the father, the priest, and with his one eye, because he wore an eye patch. And you're seeing the story is being narrated by the older sister, and it's really interesting. But it was fun. I enjoyed it for what it was. I know Stephen King is not a big fan of a lot of his adaptations of movies, some of them, but it's still fun to me. It still holds up entertainment-wise. I love movies where young Corey Haim, because it's the tragedy of him that I always feel for him and Corey Feldman, his good friend. They were really in the thick of the things as a child star and growing up in there and drugs and everything like that. It's really sad. It's always sad when I see movies with Corey Haim. I'm like, man, if he didn't get hooked on this, maybe he's still around, or this and that. So when I do see movies with him younger, in his younger days and in his teenage days, it's like, I'm just wishing God bless him and rest in peace. But yeah, Silver Bullet makes number 4. Number 5 on the list. The 5th on the list goes to the original 1941 Wolfman. Yes. If you didn't think I was not gonna have this on the list, you are smoking. You gotta give respect to where it all started. That's my motto. Respect what came before. And if it wasn't for this movie, there would be no Howling or Dog Soldiers or Silver Bullet or any of the other werewolf movies that have come out in the past and now. Give credit to the Wolfman. When I was growing up watching the Universal Monsters, I was loving it. Wasn't really scared of them, but I just loved just the play on how, the practical effects. I mean, look at the makeup on that. That's still good shit today. It's because of that. Werewolf by Night took a lot of homage from that run, and it worked perfectly. I'm forgetting the actor's name off the top of my head. Just hearing the gypsy woman tell him, the wolf bit you, did it? Yeah, he did. He did bite me. You're insane, and telling me, saying, go now, and heaven help you. It's good stuff. I mean, they even made a remake. That I think in 2010, Emily Blunt, Hugo Weaving, Sir Anthony Hopkins, and even Benicio del Toro was in it. It was pretty good. The practical effects were good in that too. Didn't mind that. But it was a remake of this. And that went on to do this and inspire others to make this. So you have to have respect for the original. That's just my motto. But yes, Wolfman, 1941. I wasn't even a thought. My parents weren't even born. My grandparents were around and they were practically kids. But yeah, I can only imagine what it was like seeing that movie in theaters at the time when that came out. That probably was like special effects galore for people. It's great. But yeah. So my pack, there you guys have it. My top 5 favorite werewolf movies of all time. Now I know a lot of people, what about Ginger Snap, Chris? What about this? Those are all good. Those are all good. I like those too. But this is a top 5, not a top 10. Top 5. This is my top 5. What's yours, my back? I like to know. But in the meantime, that is it. This is the opinion spot. And I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions and your list. Give them to me. Your outfit wants to go. In the meantime, peace, one love, deuces.